Alright, so just a quick little video here on the Floyd Rose tremolo. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about the Floyd Rose. This one, it's not a setup, it's not an intonation video, it's more if you pick one of these things up used off of eBay, Craigslist, or Reverb or something like that, how you can restore or rehab one of these great trems to make it useful. I mean, these things, they're virtually indestructible. I mean, they will last you, with proper maintenance, I mean, a lifetime. I mean, this hardened steel plate with these knife edges, they don't ever wear out. This, in my opinion, best tremolo, ever made. So this one I picked up off of eBay. I want to say it was about $130 plus maybe some shipping, maybe $140, something like that. Pretty cheap. You can still get them if you find one just with a trem unit. I've got them as cheap as $75 for one that's in really tough shape, maybe $100 with no accessories whatsoever. They start piling the accessories on. They give you a bag with the the springs and the claw and the posts. If it comes with a locking nut, I mean, you're gonna pay $150 for it. This one's an older one. Came with the oh geez, let me get that on camera here. The screw style post here. Sorry, I'm new at this. So the old wood screw style posts, which I prefer to the newer machine thread ones. This one also has a screw-in arm. It doesn't have that collared arm. This one screws in. It's threaded in. My opinion, the screw-in arms, the threaded collar arms, I like the screw-in just because, when I got my first guitar with a Floyd Rose, it had the screw-in arm. If you tighten this up, there's no slop whatsoever. The same with the collared ones. If you want to leave the thing free swinging, doing the Eddie Van Halen, there's going to be a tiny little bit of slop. I don't know if you can hear that, but same with the collared though. If you leave it loose to free swing, there's going to be a little slop in it. So it's just the way it is. Anyway, so the problems with these things, and there's a couple. If they're used quite a bit, say it's a guy's only guitar or, gigging musician, you'll see this one's black, obviously, but you'll see the first three saddles will have the finish can actually start to wear off them. You'll see it more in the black and the gold. The chrome will start to wear off, and you'll get, it'll be discolored, it'll be pitted, but it's not as easy to tell as with the ones that have the black or the gold finishes. So what happens is the saddles here, there's like a pin in here, and these saddles move up and down. You can see that right there. That saddle is pivoting on that little point right there and moving up and down. So what happens is the guy plays this thing so much, his hand is sitting on here, you're sweating, and your sweat gets in here and it rusts. You can see there's rust in here. Right in that saddle right there. These screws here, they're mild steel, they'll rust. These screws here, mild steel, they'll rust. And these things, the saddles will completely freeze up. That's the main problem here. The thing will stop working. What will happen is your fine tuners won't work because it no longer moves on that pivot point. It's just rusted solid, so it won't move up and down. When you turn your fine tuner up and down, it will no longer move up and down. That is the main problem. I've had them before where I got a cheap one, say a $75 one, where the saddles would not move. They would not move at all. So, but all's not lost. Again, these things are so well made. What I did was I took all the saddles out and I filled this thing with, quarter inch, half of an inch. I use 3-in-1 oil. WD-40 works really good because it's nice and thin, but what I like about the 3-in-1 oil is it's thicker. It leaves behind a protective film, more so than the WD. Use whatever. There's really no right or wrong. A good lubricant, petroleum-based lubricant, getting it in there to free up the saddles, whatever works. But I've had to take that one that I had where all the saddles were frozen, I actually had to take them and put them in a vise. I put the small end here, in the vise, and I would gently tap it with a hammer, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. This one I was lucky. 5 of the 6 were actually, they moved just fine, but this one was frozen solid. But it didn't take the hammer treatment. You know, I put the 3-in-1 oil to it, and what you want is, I don't know if you can hear that, but they need to move freely like that. Tick, 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 tick. It should move just freely like that. Get all your saddles to move freely like that. Take the 3-in-1 oil. I like to use a toothbrush. I put the 3-in-1 oil right on the toothbrush. You just work it into these long screws in the back that hold your saddles in place. You work it in here. Sometimes these will be frozen in place. You know, take your time. Don't round them out. You can come to the back side here, and you know, you can dab a little bit of, you know, use your WD, your 3-in-1, whatever, in here, into these, right into the screw itself. It'll work its way into the threads. Be patient. You know, wait. Don't expect this to happen. This process isn't going to happen overnight. You know, it may take a few days of working this stuff back and forth to get these things freed up. So removing the saddles, no big deal. Oh, I should mention that the saddles they have different heights to account for the curvature of the fingerboard, the radius of the fingerboard. And if you see here, you put a straight edge on, and it will rock back and forth with a different height of the saddles. So when you take these off, be mindful and set them up on your bench in the order that they came off. And I mean, if you're taking, you know, this is more, you know, if you buy one of these, a unit, you know, a brand new unit off of, you know, a used unit off of eBay, not a brand new unit, that's going to work fine, but a used unit off of eBay, something like that, you don't need to worry about the setup. I saw a great video on YouTube where if you're taking this off your guitar, say it's on a guitar and they're all solid, they're rusted up and it's not working, and what the guy did was he took little bits of blue tape. You know, he took just a tiny little bit of blue tape, and what he did was he marked the position of the saddle, and that is a fantastic idea. If you're trying to preserve your setup so that you can put the saddle back in exactly the right place, use that little piece of tape. You're gonna have to cut it a little thinner than that, so it's just the size of the saddle, so you can mark each one, and it will preserve your setup. For our purposes, for restoring one, you don't need to worry about that. So what I like to do, I have one of these trem tools. Doesn't matter. You need a 3mm Allen wrench and a 2.5mm Allen wrench. Those are the standard Floyd sizes. So your little saddle screws here, for intonation adjustment, and I've oiled these and loosened all these already, but that's the 2.5. That's the small one. So you don't need to take it off, just loosen it. And what that will also aid you in is getting your basic setup again back in place, because sometimes there's 3 positions for these screws depending on how well this thing was placed on the guitar. There's quite a bit of movement allowed, actually. You need your 3mm, the larger one on the back side. It's the same as for the locking clamp or the locking nut. You take that one off, just unscrew it. Yeah, see, there's some rust on that one. Get this out of the way, and the saddle pops right off. Now you can see this one. There's actually even a shim under there. There's a metal shim under the center. It's about as big as 4 of the saddles. Oops, lost my little string block there. Under 4 of the saddles to even more greatly increase the radius. Like I said, these are all different sizes for that string radius, but this one even has this tiny little metal shim, which is covered in rust, under there, just to lift them up even more. I mean, this came off of Kramer. A lot of them did. Kramer had the proprietary rights to Floyd Rose up until the late 80s. I don't know what year, probably 1989 or even 1990, something like that. Kramer had the proprietary rights to Floyd Rose. Any other guitar manufacturers that had a real Floyd Rose on them, and you don't see them very often back in those days. You know, you'd see an occasional Jackson, maybe a BC Rich, but what they did was they bought a Floyd Rose unit. Even the factory had to buy them from Kramer, presumably, or one of their suppliers, and to put them on the guitars. And even in the way old days, the consumer would have to buy the Floyd Rose and provide it to the builder, even if it was Jackson, Charvel, BC Rich, you know, whoever it was, and then they would put it on. But I'm lucky in that this saddle was already nice and loose. Like I said, I just had the one. So this was kind of a neat one here. So it still had the screw-in arm. I'm not sure what year they went to the collars. The collars were kind of late. Again, that was like a 88, 89, maybe even 1990 type of thing where they went to the collared arms. But you can see this one has a very short string block. Okay, and what that tells you is that this was off a guitar with a recessed Floyd Rose. Now, they didn't do recessed. Kramer didn't start doing recessed tremolos, you know, where they're sunk into the body of the guitar with that big cavity so you can pull it way up and go way down until 1987. So that means this guitar was a 1987 or later, but it still had the screw-in arm, so you can date it. I mean, it's probably, you know, an 87 or an 88, something like that. This one also had some kind of weird apparatus in it. I don't know if Kramer did these weird stabilizers that mounted in the tremolo cavity and stuff of that nature. So this one probably had some kind of weird apparatus in there. But if it has the full size string block, you know, the largest one, a 42 millimeter, that's the biggest one that they make. This guitar was a top mount, you know, from an 86 or earlier guitar. And they've started doing the top mounts again. They realize that people like me like those. They like those top mounts. They don't really care about the recessed trem. And with me, it's not about you know, that huge chunk of wood that's removed and sunken. It's the part where it's sunk down into the guitar. There's not enough room between the strings and the guitar body for my playing style. It just doesn't work for me. Some players, you know, they really like that. So again, 3-in-1 oil is actually recommended. I have this old manual here, this Floyd Rose, you know, instructions for the original Floyd Rose locking tremolo system here. And it even actually recommends the 3-in-1 oil to oil your parts. Another interesting thing here is this diagram. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm just dropping papers everywhere here. If you can see this diagram right here, this is instructions provided from Floyd Rose with their tremolo system, and it shows the springs mounted in that triangular fashion, that Eddie Van Halen fashion. There's a lot of talk on the internet about the proper way to mount your springs, and it seems like the majority of it says that they should be straight across, you know, completely horizontal, the springs. But I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong way. I do it this way with the 3 springs. I always have, and it's probably because my first real, quote-unquote real guitar, Kramer, came with the springs mounted like this. This original literature provided from Floyd Rose shows the springs mounted in that fashion. Is that the correct way to do it? Apparently they think so. You know, that's the way they diagram it. So that's the way that they installed them. Is it right? Is it wrong? You know, do what works for you. It doesn't. It really doesn't matter. It's one of those. It's a feel thing. If it feels good to you with the springs in the triangular manner, then great, it works for you. If you like them the other way, you want 2 springs, you want 4. It's all about feel, and it's all about your setup. But again, that's pretty basic how to take it apart. That video where the guy used the tape, he was putting one of those big, you know, brass blocks on. I like these. Are they necessary? I don't know. Do they work? In my opinion, they do. I can hear a difference. I can feel a difference. I feel like, you know, this is bell brass. I feel like it helps the guitar's tone. It makes it ring more like a bell. Adding the mass to it, you know, maybe it's all in my mind. Maybe it's not. You know, your mileage may vary. They make these out of tungsten. You know, some guys don't use them. You know, they have these, you know, they have stainless steel blocks. They have these, you know, they have tungsten blocks that, you know, you can get for a lot of money now. But try it, see what works for you. But this is just a basic video on, you know, quick restoration. Again, this is how to take the thing apart. You know, remove this stuff. Just lube it all up. WD-40 3-in-1 oil. Put a nice coating on it. Use a toothbrush. Take this stuff all apart. Make those saddles work. Make sure they move freely. You know, put it all back together, and this thing will literally last you a lifetime. Best tremolo ever made, in my opinion. The best feel, best stay in tune, tuning stability tremolo ever made. The Floyd Rose. So, thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.